Hello, friends and colleagues in Division Three. My name is J.J. Nekoloff. I'm the Associate Commissioner with the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, and today we bring to you a little bit of something special here, as we talk a little officiating and do an analysis of officiating in not just NCAA Division Three, but in other divisions as a whole. And this will be a teaser for you. And the correct person to give that to you is Patrick Summers, the Executive Director of the New England Women's and Men's Athletic Conference, thankfully better known as the NEWMAC, because that's a whole lot to talk about. Patrick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, JJ. Thanks for having me.
Good. Patrick, let's talk a little bit about the generation of this report that we're going to get into a little bit here. You're the head of the committee that's running up 7 individuals there. What led to the report into officiating as a whole throughout all of collegiate athletic, especially in Division III?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this has been an ongoing topic that the Division III commissioners have been addressing for a while now. You know, we've talked about it nationally in this association, and then we've also segued into regional conversation with our partner conferences. And we've also taken some steps interdivisionally, so with Divisions 1 and 2, to figure out the best way to address what we consider, you know, a shortage in officials, and also trying to figure out how we achieve some commonalities throughout the division. So as the years went by, the concerns continue to increase, again, specifically with the quantity of officials. And we didn't want to make assumptions based on things that we were seeing across the board, and we decided that it was necessary to collect data and have a third party, the Pictor Group, which you'll hear more about, analyze that data for us. It should illustrate, and what people will see when the report comes out is it'll illustrate a path forward for us. And it will address the concerns that we as a division support in terms of the conclusions that were made by the report itself.
Yeah, this is a big topic that we've been talking about for a while now. I mean, really, this is something that started to come to fruition. I believe it was last fall when the Pictor Group was signed on, and we started working on that. And it's important for people to know that while we're dealing with the things we're dealing with right now with COVID, the pandemic, and coming and returning to play, we still have these other larger issues that were on the table before any of this happened that we need to look at. So the Pictor Group is helping this committee look at it in a very organized process and really have 3 key components to that. And we'll hit each one of these, but the 3 key components: organizational leadership and oversight from a national perspective, strategic alliances, and then conference engagement. So let's hit each one of these individually, starting with organizational leadership and oversight.
Yeah, so what you'll find out in the report is that there needs to be some sort of national review of how we do things regarding officiating. Right now, it's regional based, it's sport based, and there's really no commonality out there. We also don't have a central registry for all officials that work NCAA games, so it's going to be hard for us to survey and to get feedback from them in terms of what works and what doesn't work. We also, you know, from a national perspective, we need to address the treatment of officials. We need to normalize that they're a part of the game and that they're an integral part of the game. There's some systemic and cultural things that we really need to address from this national perspective. And then lastly, from a national organizational perspective, we need to look at the diversity recruitment efforts and increase those opportunities.
Now let's move on to strategic alliances. Obviously, we're going to need help making all this happen. Talk a little bit about some of those alliances here that we're looking
at. And what you will see based on the Division III commissioners championing this, we actually had Divisions 1 and 2 join us in the effort and an analysis. Their report is coming out after ours because we started the process first. But we have to continue to work with Divisions 1 and 2. It's important to do that. We are playing the same game, right? So we need to make sure that there's consistency there. We're going to need to partner with educational entities out there. So the National Federation of High Schools, NJCAA, NAIA, and the NCAA needs to be engaged in this conversation. The partnerships with coaches associations and partnerships with officiating organizations and national governing bodies will be essential to this as well.
And the third piece, at least to the key components, if you will, on our broad overview of what we're talking about: conference engagement.
Yeah. So, we're in it every day. Some conferences more than others in terms of how they assign officials, educate and train them. We're going to have to provide better mechanisms to do so. Feedback, education, training of officials, and the conferences are going to need to get involved in that. Fee structure. We're going to have to address the compensation structure of officials and everything around officials. And I know that's difficult right now. We're all going through some tough times financially regarding COVID, but we do need to see and we need to evaluate how we compensate officials and our assigners. Best practices from a communication perspective. Again, conferences trying to be consistent in how they communicate and educate and train officials are going to be important. And then going back to what I originally said earlier, sportsmanship. Conferences have to get engaged and get more involved in how we're treating officials, the students, from students to the coaches to the fans and the staff that are there. We need to look into this further.
So those are three pretty major areas we're going to have to target on all this, and I don't think any one is more important than the other. But then the question becomes, so the report comes out, what are the next steps we're looking at here? What do we need to do next with this report to put it in play and make it, the work that is going to be done by this committee and the D3CA and others like it, to put it into play, and especially that on institutional campuses?
Yeah, so the first thing you're going to see is the report's going to get released to the Division III commissioners next week, and then followed by that, it's going to be released to the entire association to understand the findings and give everyone the opportunity to look at it. It's 184 pages of information on officiating, and there is a synopsis for those who don't want to go through all 184 pages, about 6 pages of recommendations and what we're going to do. So in terms of next steps engagement-wise, the committee of 7 are now working on a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan, and we're going to release the pillars. And I think you're going to talk a little bit more about this in terms of what else we're going to be doing to follow up this conversation. And you're going to speak to some of the members of the committee to hear more about what those pillars look like and how we're going to achieve those goals. Engaging stakeholders, as you said, institutional stakeholders in these conversations, NCAA, all of the groups that I indicated here, NCAA, national governing bodies, National High School Federation, and that's the next step that we have to do. It's create a plan and execute a plan, and continue down the road of addressing the systemic and cultural issues we've identified and focusing on those three outcomes that came from the report.
Well, helping us through all this, I know that we've talked about that there'll be a committee. There is a committee set up. It's of 7 people, including yourself. Currently, you're chairing that, but you'll step aside shortly to chair the entire D3CA, and we'll have a new chair for that. And we'll talk to each members of the committee as we move through, maybe talk to a couple members of the NCAA as well. So look forward to periodic updates from us about this topic as we move forward, as it's something that is certainly central to not just Division III, but it's going to be central to all collegiate athletics. And you may hear a little bit about how there's some buy-in from Division I and Division II in this as well. But Patrick, I want to thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, JJ. Appreciate your time again.